Welcome to Future Sense Now, where we explore the landscape and byways of our shared futures. An e-zine of the Futures Forum live online. We exchange ideas, information, and inspiration about the futures we want. Get Future Sense Now with host Dr. Claire Nelson, futurist and editor of Human Futures.
Greetings and welcome to Future Sense Now, an online e-magazine of the Futures Forum. February is Black History Month, and so we're having a series of conversations on the future history of Black America. Specifically, I'd like to examine how Blacks in these United States of America might be faring in the year 2030 and beyond. Why 2030? What is considered a pull year, with members of the United Nations around the world setting 17 goals for achieving greater sustainability for all. Sustainable Development Goal number 10 focuses on inequality. And I think that is certainly one in which I think the Black American community could rally around in terms of moving us from point A to point Z in the next 10 years. In the US, by 2030, it is said that America will become a majority minority nation. But my question has been, does that mean that we see a shift in terms of disparity and inequity and inequality? So to help us have this conversation in this session, I'll be speaking with Erika Jefferson, who is the president and founder of Black Women in Science and Engineering, BWISE. Now, as an engineer, I'm thrilled by that. It's an organization focused on bridging the leadership gap for Black women in STEM. She received her MBA from Georgia Tech, I almost went there, and her BS in chemical engineering from LSU, which is Louisiana State University. She has worked for top companies such as Amoca, Chevron, and Praxair in the leadership and executive roles, a myriad of them, ranging from sales and business development to supply chain to operations excellence. And her over more than 2 decades of experience, that's not to date her, right?
That's right.
A little across the nation from Chicago, Greenville, Charlotte, Atlanta, and eventually Houston. But let me tell you, this organization, BWISE, is national and going to be international. So without further ado, BWISE, which was founded in 2050, let me welcome Erika Jefferson. Erika, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depends on what time of day you're watching this.
Right. That's right. Since we're global,
we're timeless. We're time travelers.
To everyone.
Thank you so much
for having me on. This is exciting.
Yeah, I'm so excited. You know, I was very excited to find out about BWISE. I really just love that term wise because it's what I think women who were formerly called witches were, wise women, wise elders, and they were things which is unburned at the stake. Thank God we have hopefully gone beyond that. But of course, we know some of that still happens. Having said that, as we know, STEM is driving the volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous world in which we live, the VUCA world we live in. Tell me from your vantage point as somebody who has been in the engineering space and who's working to, push more Black women in the engineering space, what are you seeing emerging as we go this next 10-year sprint into 2030?
I'm seeing all parts of STEM, science, traditional areas, science, engineering, mathematics, requiring understanding of computer science, whether that's coding, software, hardware. When I graduated, we had just a little bit of what we call programming. Now I'm seeing that's a requirement, and so many of the young people who are coming out of school now have both traditional STEM backgrounds and also have some coding. It's probably a requirement, I would guess, for graduation now. And that's so critical because that underpins everything. Whether you are a chemist working in a lab, you're probably going to have to understand how to model and use lots of data, which will require, data science skills or data analytical skills. And so everything is needing this basic in computer science. I guess from my vantage point, it's not going to eliminate chemists. And I speak about this quite frequently. It's not going to eliminate civil engineers. because as computer scientists, they're only trained in the application of getting something done. They're not the thing, right? The civil engineers build the bridges.
Yeah.
The CAD designers are the ones who have the acumen to use the software, but you would not send a software engineer out on a job site to build a bridge. So, you know, I don't want, from my perspective, for us to lose focus that technology is not the thing, it's the thing that enables the thing. And so we've got to make sure that we don't cause a massive brain drain in these traditional fields of science and engineering, biology, chemistry, civil engineering, mechanical engineering, and have in 10 years, everyone in computer science.
One of the things I think what excited me about BWISE and why I wanted to talk to you was this sense that we spend a lot of time focusing on strengthening on K through 12. And there's nothing wrong with that. Clearly, we have to have a pipeline. But I feel that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I feel that we should also have more attention paid to shining light on the people who are and have been doing the work and have done the work, so that they have as much notoriety, if you will, and star power, if you will, as our athletes and those people. We see the outpouring of love for Kobe Bryant, for example, not to take it away from the sporting people. But that has sort of skewed, I think, our young people's view as to what quote unquote genius and star power looks like. You have been doing a lot of work in just unearthing some more hidden figures. Tell me about that journey for you in identifying these hidden figures.
So I'll start from the beginning. You know, we stand on the shoulders of giants. I've been featuring a woman specifically this year who has created something, either who's discovered something or actually has a patent. And we've got women, you know, who've done this work and began their journey in STEM, you know, in the 40s and 50s, even, you know, before, you know, the ladies from Hidden Figures. And so, like I said, we stand on the shoulders of giants, but yet.
Give us a couple of examples of two that stand out for you, so people get a sense of when you say people invented stuff for the figures. Like whom? Give us a couple of examples, just quickly.
Just this morning, I focused on or highlighted a woman. Betty Washington Green. She, I think, was the first Black woman to have a leadership role at Dow Chemical. And she has patents in latex manufacturing, which goes into everything, gloves, paints. I mean, this was back in the 50s and 60s. Wow. And yet when you ask someone, you know, what Black woman is in STEM, now it's Katherine Johnson and the ladies from Hidden Figures, but before that it was Mae Jemison. And now we're halfway into the month of February, and I've still got another 15 women to highlight. Wow. And these are women who've done tremendous things, but, you know, even in my work in trying to uncover them, there's very little written about them, Wow. One that's near and dear to my heart, because a lot of these ladies have, you know, transitioned on, God rest their soul, so I've not had a chance to meet them. But one in particular is Dr. Patricia Bath, and we're so excited to be partnering with her daughter and a coterie of her friends and supporters to get her nominated into the Inventors Hall of Fame. So she was the first Black woman to receive a medical patent. She received that patent in 1982. She is a physician, ophthalmologist. She was the first Black woman to be chair of the ophthalmology department at UCLA. Incredibly accomplished, and has an incredible amount of things written about her. But yet, you know, until recently, no one really, you know, had featured her or talked about her. I'm fortunate to say that I had met her in 2015, right when we were starting BWISE, and just a phenomenal woman. And so it's so important that we recognize folks so that our communities and other communities realize that this is not something we just started doing. We've been right shoulder to shoulder with men working under certainly more adverse conditions, you know, for as long as they have. We just weren't always given the credit. So it's so important. You know, we want to encourage young people to go into these areas, but one of the way I think you do that is you show the folks who've gone before them and seen what they have accomplished and what they built that is now being built upon, right? Dr. Bath pioneered laser eye surgery to remove cataracts. Now that technique has gone, you know, farther than her wildest dreams, I'm sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, so yeah, because we're talking about creating a better future. I'm sure that's why you're doing BWISE. And
Mm-hmm.
so this idea of making visible and sort of codifying, if you will, in some ways through storytelling and other ways, this
Mm-hmm.
idea that there is a path. You have to look for
Right.
the path to be
Exactly.
empowered, to be self-empowered, because
Exactly.
this is this idea of motivating people to create the science and STEM of today that will change tomorrow is kind of what we're
Exactly.
about. As
Exactly.
you work in Be Wise, have you come across today many women in these same positions? Are women, Black women in these positions still the only one in their company?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you finding that more people have, let's say, company? Back in the day when I went to school back in the 70s at my university here in America, I was the only Black woman in every single class
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
for 5, 6 years. No,
Right.
9 years, 9 years in total doing a PhD.
Right.
So except for one class, my last class in my PhD, it was one other Black woman in my class. That's
Wow.
it for 9 years of going to school.
Wow.
So are you finding now that there is in this era more, let's say, opportunities to have clusters or networks or alliances within the different fields of Black women, or is it still so sparse that they still are the only one, and therefore BWISE serves a very special function to create that cohesive whole, if you.
Mm-hmm. I wish I could say that things have improved dramatically since I graduated more than 20 years ago. I was the only female, Black female, and African American person in my chemical engineering class. And yet, just a year or two ago, I'm seeing students repost this. I'm the first one to graduate in this in this discipline. So number one, that's disappointing that we're not having even more since I graduated. But two, that's not correct. And so these students are graduating and they don't even know the history. Apparently there's no way for them to know those of us who've gone before them. We're not documented, we're not listed, so they know who we are. So they once again think they're the first to do these things. And some of these, long-standing programs, they've been folks graduated back in the 40s with PhDs, which is mind-blowing to me. So
Yeah,
we've got to
exactly. I mean,
yes, we've got
it's
to
easier now.
exactly.
I mean, at least now they have people like you giving information. Back in, I knew no Black women engineers before I went into engineering. It was just a spurious thought.
Exactly. So even before Black women in numbers and any numbers got degrees in engineering, there were lots of them, proportionally small to the greater population, lots getting PhDs in life sciences and zoology and maybe not microbiology, but biology. But history has seemed to have forgotten them. And, I don't want, this generation, to feel like, oh, I can't do that. Nobody that looks like me has ever done that. It's important, just as important as the work is the promoting and the sharing of the work. And, what I find fascinating is some of these women who've done incredible things. When you do an internet search of them, they have 1 or 2 or 3 articles written. We're forgetting our history, and we're not preserving it, and we're not promoting it. And that's so critical, both for coming generations, but for folks now, right? Who are in these careers right now, who are trying to reach, senior leadership roles in their organizations. It's critical that, they be able to see who's gone before them.
Yeah, I mean, actually, the logo that we use on this broadcast is the Sankofa bird. Look back to go forward, right? Because it's about, yes, I'm a futurist, focus on the future, but you have to kind of know your history to build that foundation of moving forward. Having said that, because we know STEM and is driving change, right? We're talking about Industry 4.0 world. You know what that entails. It's the Internet of Things and AI and robotics and 3D printing. And the concern is, for me, as someone who works at the intersection of technology and economic development, is how do we properly ensure that the people who are making decisions that will affect our lives are in relationship with the people that you are talking to in BWISE. Is BWISE organizing, let's call it sister sessions where the women politicians, for example, have an opportunity to learn, in a safe space about how, blockchain works or how these things work. So when they're up there pontificating politics, they're more aware of what it is that's at stake. Is this
Exactly.
Are these among some of the things that you're doing?
So we have developed relationships with some key folks in Congress, focused on informing, because they're making decisions with non-technical backgrounds, right? So they're making the decisions for all of us. And so it's important that we share our knowledge and inform them so that they can make a decision based on the perception of everyone, right? If they're looking for the top experts in a particular field, most likely it's not going to be a Black female that is sent to them, right? And so that person may be making a decision based on their world purview, which is not reflective of everyone. So it's important that we continue to do that work to inform. I'm hopeful that we'll have more women scientists run for political office. That would do tremendous to help both further the issues and challenges of retaining, not me, I'm not interested, but others.
I would actually run.
You would? We would support you. We would support you.
My husband's like, no, she needs to stay home. She's doing too much already.
But imagine what you could do, right? If you were in charge of making policy, that's so important. I'm working right now on an opportunity with the patent office because so much has been created that we weren't given proper recognition for. And so making sure both that historical folks who've done these incredible things get their just due, but encouraging the next generation of innovators. And when I say the next generation, I'm not necessarily talking about children. There are people who are working, who are 40, 50 years old right now, who could be the next Bill Gates or Robert
because they're
Smith.
in their labs now. And one of the things I find, actually, which I want to kind of segue into, is that there are many Black women professionals, doctorates at HBCUs. And we find that the HBCUs, because they're not so savvy in terms of the technology transfer space and understanding the whole, IP and the money around the IP and venture capital, that HBCUs are seeming to remain, even those with excellent engineering schools and excellent science departments, are seeming to remain in a state of, I would say, revolving poverty, right?
Right.
Because they have not mastered the art of technology transfer and making the leap from scientific research to product innovation and product.
Exactly.
Have you found in your network, right? Because they're so critical to the future. Have you found in your network individuals, Black women who are working on these issues, how to solve some of these challenges in the technology ecosystem to help ensure that Black women who are inventing things in universities have access to Black investment bankers or white investment bankers? We don't care. The is green anyway. Green money investors.
That's right. That's right.
Green money investors.
That's right.
Are you finding that we're having those conversations in BWISE?
So stay tuned. We'll have to get you involved, but I'll be in collaboration with one of our, several of our members who are focused specifically on technology transfer, because you're right, especially when it comes from some of the federal research labs. So Siri, garage door openers, that all came out of the research at NASA. Siri came direct from NASA. Taxpayers, funded that, and then Apple took it and made millions of dollars, billions of dollars probably off of it. So, as I mentioned, that's a business function. And, especially as researchers, you are taught to research and find. You're not taught to run businesses. And I say all the time, scientists and engineers make some of the worst business owners because we just don't have that. We just don't have that business acumen. We're so focused on the technology application of what we do, And the world is made up of all different types, right? So we have the scientists and engineers, but we also have marketing people, we have sales people, we have finance people, we have logistics people, and we have operations people. And so all of those are needed in order to run a business. So you can have the world's most perfect solution, invention, and without those, you just won't be able to bring it to market. So that, you're right, HBCUs are ripe for that. Anyone who's ever tried to work with an HBCU knows that that's not always the easiest thing to do. There are a lot of factors that contribute to, their current state of affairs. I'll have to be frank, especially as an alumna of an HBCU and a PWI, primary white institution. Just, there's money on the table, and it's heartbreaking when you see how much need is there, that you say you've got brilliance at your fingertips. Yes, and yes. You're fighting for crumbs, and other universities down the street are getting the whole cake. So I'm hopeful. There's a new funding grant that just came out last week, targeting or focusing specifically on HBCUs. I haven't had a chance to dive into it very much, but I know the need is there, the opportunity is there. It's just like anything. There's politics, there's things, red tape, all kind of things that prevent things from moving as fast as they really should have. But stay tuned. We're hopefully going to work on that, because
well, we have to. I mean, the fact is that we're moving into a different type of organizational structures, and I think some of us who are naturally, let's say, change makers, we're just born that way. We get up and we start things with no money because we know we just have to do it, right? So I know what that is like. I think understanding the power of collaboration is what's going to be a transformative action. In other words, understanding that if we think of it from a point of abundance, that the pie can be bigger. So before we fight about the crumbs, let's bake a bigger pie together. Then we can fight about the crumbs.
Exactly.
A slice, not about the crumbs. We can fight about a slice. So when we think about the future of the American dream, and we think about what's happening with technology, with the different, let's say, scandals in data around the election, or scandals in, potential scandals around genome editing, whatever. We haven't thought about those things yet. What are some of the future issues that concern you? What is keeping you up? Like, we really have to do this if we're gonna even hope that in 2030, we're going to be better off. What is keeping you up?
I would say this whole future of work, and what work and jobs look like in the future, the impact of artificial intelligence and automation in jobs. It's hard to argue with, a company that can save millions of dollars by getting a computer to do things that you once had humans do 24 hours a day. They don't take vacations. They do sometimes break down and cause issues, but there's someone who's fixing that. And companies are focused on the bottom line more than ever, right? They're not looking for 5 to 10% year over year growth. They're looking at 20% year over growth. And if you can't just do that by revenue, that's going to have to be impacted by your cost. And what is one of the largest costs companies have? Fixed, right? Overhead is salaries and employees. And but so
this is the conversation we kind of have today, but that's why I am following very closely the whole new economic movement, because this idea, I have a paradigm I call the smart futures paradigm. And I mean, smart is a meaningful metric. If we don't have, people assume, okay, the work is going to go away, we'll just find something else to do. But I just saw a number yesterday that says for every one robot, quote unquote, robot is not just a physical robot, like brain robot as well, right?
Right.
1.6 jobs are going to go away.
Right.
So even if we can replace that one job, the 0.6 will still be not. That might end up being, 600,000 people more than currently are out of a job, even if we retrain 2 to 1. So it means that at this point in human history, there needs to be a paradigm shift. And one of the reasons for this conversation beyond today is I think it's time for Black America, which has been the spiritual leader in making the American democracy live up to its promise. I'm going to claim that for Black people in America, right?
Okay.
Because when when the founding fathers talked about, we hold these rights to be inalienable, we weren't even people yet, quote unquote.
Exactly.
It was
right.
Black people who said, wait a minute,
Exactly.
we're here, and
Exactly.
pushed the door and pushed the line and continue to push that line of what it means to be human, what it means to be a part of a human family here in America and globally.
Right.
So as we think about this future, I think that scientists and technologists and Black women science and technologists have an additional role to play beyond just the science. Do you feel that this could happen? Are you optimistic that this could be a role? Optimistic, pessimistic, or neutralistic? That this could be a role that BWISE can help the Black community to really be more intentional about as we move into this very, I would say, difficult time in human history. Space.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, whether you're still a practicing scientist or engineer, your work and your background is so critical, because I liken it to being an army of folks who are spreading technology, innovation throughout all parts of the community. And that's so critical, because as technology increases, the number of folks who are capable of understanding it, participating it, and controlling it is getting smaller and smaller. So you're going to have a small group of folks who are controlling things for all of us: healthcare, where you live, food manufacturing, in the hands of just a few who, I'm sure by their own admission would say, no, I really don't know anything else about other demographics, right? So we've got to get folks who not just can march, but are knowledgeable enough about technology to have questions intelligently of these mega corporations who are soon to control everything. Amazon is doing everything. They're going into healthcare, and if we don't have folks who are knowledgeable about the technology, what's going to happen to those of us who are less fortunate, who are not privileged to be able to have access to the internet and be able to have good paying jobs? And I see Black and brown people specifically more impacted by the future workforce, AI and automation, because those are the jobs that are going to be eliminated first, right? Those are the ones that are repetitive, things like that. They're going to go. I mean, if you've ever been to the airport, you see the wonderful folks cleaning the bathrooms. As soon as they can figure out how to do that with a robot, those jobs will be gone.
And believe you me, the Chinese were testing robot workers in fast food restaurants.
It's already here.
China. Right.
It is already here.
It's already here. They're now testing robots to pick grapes and sweet pepper. So the farm work jobs are.
And you know what? It's hard to argue with leadership when they're trying to get cost under control, right? Because they don't have they may say, oh, well, this is for good of the world, but they have shareholders, and their responsibility is to make sure those shareholders receive what they have promised and they will receive. So even though they have branding and marketing and says that they care about the world, at the end of the day, and the bottom line is, did you return the profit to the shareholders, right? So if that means eliminating 20% of the workforce so that they can automate that, that's what they're going to do. We just need to be prepared and have folks who are qualified to be able to get these next round of jobs in automation, in AI, analysts, things like that. The jobs are changing. There will be new jobs that are coming into the workforce that don't probably even exist right now. So we've got to make sure that all organizations focus on empowering our communities, are teaching that, sharing that. If you're not doing that today, you're going to get run over, period. I mean, if you're still talking about things that happened in the early 20th century, you're outdated. You need to be providing resources, information to your constituents. It's just not enough anymore, right? For us to meet and gather, you got to be providing content for folks to be educated.
You'll be run over by the future.
You'll be run over, and not run over by the future, not run over by other organizations, but the future, you just won't be relevant, right? You just won't be relevant. I think back to things that were so pervasive when I was young, and you just would have never thought would be gone. Look at Ebony Jet. Who would have ever thought that that whole conglomerate, that was, you know, for decades, how, you know, the African American community got news, right? And to see that that brand,
they were not paying attention to the future.
We're not paying attention, and so that's what I mean by being run over.
That's why I'm a futurist. I'm here to help.
Yes,
I'm here to help.
Yes,
I figured that out. I figured that out what, almost 16 years ago, and then because I was finding myself being in the same bit of comfortable with what things were.
Exactly. And
so I wanted to thank you for bringing this to our attention. I thank you for taking the time to talk to us. And before we end, one last question. 2030 BWISE. BWISE will then be 15 years old. You were founded the year that the SDGs were founded. And woman has this SDG 5 is on women. So I think BWISE has a very special role to play in aligning itself and its work to the SDGs.
Absolutely.
So question is, what is the headline? What is the headline in the news with BWISE in terms of its success back in 2030? We're now like in 2032. What did we say in 2030 that BWISE succeeded in doing? Because we're now heading to our 2040 goals.
Right. I would say the headline would say BWISE 15 years of innovation and changing the world. And our leaders are doing things just 5 years ago weren't possible. Here's to another 15 years of BWISE leadership in changing the world.
And I'm going to be more specific because we have to have a SMART goal, right? So it has to be measurable. So we're going to say that BWISE was effective in securing a policy, a science technology policy institute to train and educate Black politicians to be aware of the STEM agendas that are driving change.
I like it.
BWISE was front and center of that move. So thank you so much, BWISE, for the fantastic work you did to help us change the conversation and help ensure that Black people, not only in America, but in the Caribbean and Africa, had a better future because BWISE helped to create the Science and Technology Policy Training Institute.
I like it. Print that. I like it. You're hired.
Thank you. I just want to thank you so much, Erika Jefferson, for being with me today. Again, you are the president and founder of Black Women in Science and Engineering, BWISE. Of course, BWISE actually does the science and engineering, but include T is part of both science and engineering. You can't have science and engineering without T. So BWISE. And so just thank you so much for being stepping out on faith to create this organization. I promise you I'm going to become an active member.
We can't wait. We need you. We need you. We'll have to change our logo so we'll have like the Uncle Sam instead of the Uncle Sam with his fingers. We need you, Black woman.
Thank you again. So that's it, folks. I wanted to thank you for staying with us for this 30 minutes or so on Future Sense Now. Remember, we come together to explore salient ideas to create smart futures. Remember, the future is embedded in the landscape of today. So seize the future. Let's go out and co-create it. And until next time, we just want to say safe journeys.
Safe journeys.
Thank you for listening to Future Sense Now with Dr. Claire Nelson. Future Sense Now is produced by the Futures Forum in Washington, D.C. For more information, visit www.thefuturesforum.org. Remember, our futures are embedded in the landscape of our present stories. Seize the day, share this story, and share the future.